Hey, so are you in the market for a new home, but you have no idea what you're getting into, or you've seen some friends and family who have done it, but you're still just not really sure how to go about it? Well, if that is you, then I got some answers for you. So I've compiled a comprehensive buyer's guide that is 100% dedicated to this fall market in Oklahoma City. Hey, so fall is not just about pumpkin spice lattes and cozy sweaters. This is also a great time for you to get into the house that you've always wanted. Sellers are usually a little bit more motivated. There's not as much competition, so you can secure the house that you want at a lower price or not go into crazy multiple offers like we've seen lately. So stick around as we guide you through the steps that are necessary to getting into that favorite house that you've always wanted. And by the end of this video, you are going to have all the tools that you could possibly need in getting to your new house. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video if you like, and let's just get right into it. All right, so now before you start your home search, it is critical that you assess your finances so you know what you're getting into. I recommend getting in touch with a lender off the bat because they're going to be able to really just analyze everything and bring those numbers into focus so you'll know exactly what you're going to be looking at in terms of your monthly payment, what your insurance needs to be, what the taxes will be. Now, obviously, a good lender is just as important as a good realtor, and I tell my clients that, realistically, you've got a two-man team that's helping you into this house. You've got your real estate guy or girl, who is, in this case, me, who would be guiding you through the contract and the negotiating and everything that has to do with the house itself. But then you also have the lender who's going to be dealing with the numbers, the finances, everything that's going to basically afford you to buy the house. All right, so then it's all about finding the right neighborhood or the area that you're looking to live. In my opinion, finding the right area is just as important as finding the right home itself. And there are a number of different factors that can go into this. So what I tell my clients is to just make a list. What are your must-haves and what are your nice-to-haves for the general area in which you're going to live? And then, honestly, straight up research. You can do it all on yourself. You can kick it behind the keyboard and work at it that way, or you can just ask a realtor. At this point, I really encourage you to hire a realtor, go interview a bunch of them, figure out which one you vibe with the best. Buyer's agents right now, we basically work not necessarily for free, but the seller pays all of our commissions 99% of the time. So really, you're going to be getting a full professional representation for nothing out of pocket to you. So think about that and go hire a realtor because they're going to help you out in the long run. Another thing that's really important to a lot of people are schools and safety. If you have kids, you're obviously going to want to find out what school district you're going to be in. And quite frankly, a lot of clients that I work with, this is something that comes up well before they even start to kind of define their areas in which they're living because they got to be in Deer Creek schools or they got to be in Oakdale or Edmond or Oklahoma City or whatever the case is. So make sure that you know where you need to be for schools if you have kids that are school age. All right, so now this is like the most fun part, man. This is the home search. And usually, and really, you could do this in any order, man. You don't have to be like bing, bang, boom, bang, bing. And let's be real. Most people are on Zillow way before they decide they're going to start buying a house because what do we do, man? Like Zillow is a fun thing to look at and make really quippy remarks and decisions about other people's choices, right? So I think personally that it's a good idea to have somebody that's got your back from square one because they're going to have much more market knowledge than most. So you could always rely on Zillow. You can go to Realtor.com, Redfin, Trulia, Homes.com. The possibilities are endless. Personally, I think that there are just as many great opportunities off market as there are on market. So once you got a realtor that you're working with, you could ask them, hey, could you find some off-market homes for me? If they're worth their salt, they're gonna know plenty of people who are in the investor space or otherwise selling their homes. Personally, I have massive amounts of networks in which I belong to and friends and associates that are investors. So I've got access to tons of off-market properties that I'd be more than happy to share with you. Just let me know. And then obviously you can do the drive-bys and go to open houses. The open houses are actually a really great way that you can get ideas for things that you like. You can actually see the home as it stands. We all know that Zillow listings sometimes look great and then you get there and they're utter shit. But then that's also true on the invert. I have been to homes that have a terrible online presence. They photograph just horribly, but I walked in and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these are great. So just keep that in mind that, once you're looking at this beauty on paper, when you get there, it's going to be different, sometimes worse, sometimes better. All right, so once you've found the house that you like, now it is time to write the offer. And at this point, this is really where you can lean in on your real estate agent's expertise and knowledge, because they should have a wide arsenal of tools that are at your disposal. So ask them to run comps, ask them to figure out what the price point that you feel that it's going to appraise at, so you can kind of judge where you're going to be writing your offer. Now, this is not 2020, so you don't have to write an offer that is $30,000 above asking price with an appraisal gap, with waiving inspections and all that stuff. I mean, at this point, there are many, many places that are going under contract under list price, and that's something that you can consider as you're moving forward. You don't have to break the bank, right? If something is listed at 400K, chances are you don't have to write at 400K. Now, obviously, this isn't a blanket statement. There are plenty of homes that still go to multiple offers that will sell over list price, but this is just not the norm. It's not what we had seen in the unicorn years of 20 to 22. So keep that in mind. Now, you're gonna want somebody who is a killer negotiator, in my opinion. I love negotiating. I love getting the best deal for my buyers and the most amount of money for my sellers, as we all do. I mean, let's be real. However, you want to know that the person that is working on your behalf is not gonna leave any money on the table and that has experience doing this. So the negotiations do not stop once you are under contract. You still have to go through inspections, appraisal, repairs. I mean, there's still plenty of reasons that this contract could and sometimes do bust. So make sure that you are confident in your real estate agent's negotiation skills. So once you're under contract, once you have made that offer and the seller has accepted it, you are now in the inspection contingency window. Now, by default, this is about 14 days once the contract has been executed and signed by both parties. And in this window, you have full reign to access the house and to conduct all of your inspections, investigations, reviews, all of that stuff. So make sure that you or your real estate agent has a very good inspector that they can depend on, that they can rely on, and that is trustworthy. I have seen tons of deals bust because of terrible inspectors. As always, I have a list of great inspectors that I would be most willing to share with you. Do not skip this step. I don't care if you're buying a $100,000 house, that $300, $400, or $500 on the inspection is going to be very, very much worth it, because a home inspector can find things that you can't see as the buyer, that they may be hidden from us as the realtor, and this is your rights per the contract. So don't skip the home inspection, for God's sakes. So once you've got your home and you are under contract and you're going through the inspections, your lender is going to be working on things on the back end, and there are just as many steps to what they do as there are to what we do as realtors. However, a lot of the stuff that they do, they just kind of do on their own, and you're not going to be involved that much in the day-to-day. But they're going to run a title search, so they'll make sure that there's not any clouds on the title or any defects or any liens on the property, because you certainly want that stuff cleared up before you take ownership of this house. Most places, most title companies, they have a what's called a title insurance policy that you can take out that's usually around $100. Well worth it, because if you find that there is issues with that title, that's going to delay closing and it's just a bad scene altogether. So make sure to get the title insurance policy. And then once that inspection window, that inspection contingency has expired, then the earnest money that you have put down, usually 1% of the contract price, that is non-refundable at this point. So keep in mind that once you are in the inspection contingency and say that you've got your home inspections done and they have determined that the house has $20,000 worth of repairs that need to be done, and the seller is not willing to make any movements or negotiates anything to that effect, then you have every right to then leave that contract and withhold and basically get your earnest money back. Now, you're going to be out the money for the inspections, and if the lender has already ordered the appraisal, you are going to be out that money, which is about $600. But it can be a hard hit to take. However, Buying a house that is going to just be a money pit is the last thing that you need. And trust me, it's happened to a lot of people I know. So take advantage of the fact that you as the buyer have tons of protection put on you from the governments, from the real estate commission, and just in general. So make sure that your real estate agent knows all of the ins and outs of the contract, because these are legally binding documents, and there's a lot of realtors that I've worked with that have absolutely no clue what they actually say. All right, so as you're in your inspection period, once you've got your report back, you then have the opportunity to address the issues that are on that report in what's known as a TRR, treatment, repair, replace. So say that the house itself needed a new roof, or it had foundation issues, or it needed some plumbing repaired. You can ask the seller to say, we've identified that the roof on 123 Main Street needs to be replaced, and we are asking that you replace that. Or same with foundation, or same with plumbing. So if the seller decides, hey, we're gonna clear it all, that's usually best case scenario. But there's times where they say, well, we feel that the plumbing doesn't really need to be done, or that the foundation is good, or that the roof is maybe it needs some work, or whatever the case may be. So they can either elect to give you concessions in lieu of repairs. So if it's gonna cost you 15 grand for a new roof, they could say, we'll give you that amount at closing. They're not gonna write a check for it. They're just gonna take that off of their net at closing. Or they can just say, you know what? No, the house is as is, in which case you as the buyer can just run a cost benefit analysis and say, okay, well, if you're not willing to do this, then we're leaving the contract. We will bust the contract and then get our earnest money back. So just keep that in mind. So just keep all that stuff in mind, because it is really important as you're going through the process. You need to flex your rights as a buyer. As the home is in escrow at the title company and they're working on all that stuff, at this point, the lender has probably already ordered the appraisal, and the appraisal has hopefully been done at this point. And once you receive that value back, you are going to find two different things. They're going to say either the house did or did not meet value with or without repairs. So say you went under contract on a $400,000 home and the value came back at $430,000, which is great. That means you have $30,000 equity on day one. Now, say that same scenario is occurring, however, the appraisal came back at $370,000, which obviously that sucks, because you are paying $400,000 for what they have now determined a house to be $370,000 in value. So you can go back to the seller and say, okay, well, obviously we have a problem. The bank is only going to loan on that appraised value. So either the seller is going to need to drop that contract price, you as the buyer are going to need to come up to closing with $30,000, or you guys can meet in the middle. You can come up 15, they can drop 15. So appraisals are heavy, they mean a lot. They've got a lot of weight to them. 90% of the time, if the home is in good condition, in a good area, and priced well or reasonably, and the listing agent did their homework and has priced this in accordance with market value and what the property is actually representative of, the appraisal is going to come back fine. There are times that you get some, appraiser that's having a bad day, or maybe he's finding data that we didn't find. But usually the appraisers they're not out there to tank deals or to make your life hell. They are just there to protect the bank and whatever. I respect it. Now, on that lending side, I wanted to address some things that are always of a big question mark, right? And that is closing costs. So each side has closing costs, right? The seller typically has the burden of brokerage fees. So that gets cut in half. 3 goes to the listing agent, 3 goes to the buyer's agent. But there are also title fees that are in play. There are prepaids, escrow. There's a number of different things for closing costs. So make sure that you understand that down payment is different than closing costs, and that what you are going to need as the buyer to bring to closing, and your real estate agent can get that for you, your lender can get that for you, but you need to be crystal clear as to what amount of money you need to bring to closing, because that is a very important little factor in this whole process. All right, so now we are done with the appraisal, we are done with the inspections, they've been negotiated, the appraisal is good, all signs point to closing on time, and everybody's happy. So at this point, you really just are waiting out the clock, right? You only have Usually a 30-day close is typical. That gives title all the time they need to do what they do, as well as the lender. If it's a cash deal and you've got a good title rep that you work with, you could close these deals in 10 to 14 days, but anything involving a mortgage usually does take about 30 days. So once you're done with the inspection and the appraisal and the TRR and the repairs and everybody's happy, you're gonna wanna make sure to do a final walkthrough before closing. And I recommend doing this at least 3 or 4 days before closing, because God forbid you do find some items that they need to fix, whether those are items from the TRR or say that a wall fell down, or that whatever the case may be. You want to identify that before closing. And if you do your final walkthrough the morning of close and you realize, holy shit, there's all these things that need to be done, that doesn't give you enough time to address those. So make sure to get your real estate agent to do their final walkthrough before closing, at least 2 to 3 days, provided that the seller has already had the time to knock out all that stuff. Now, at this point, you're gonna wanna make sure, hopefully before this actually, make sure that you have transferred utilities, make sure that you have moved your mail. I have a checklist that I send out to my clients of things that they need to do before they close. Make sure that all that stuff is set to go into an effect that day. Because if you move in and you think, oh, holy shit, why is there no gas, water, electric, whatever the case, I'm not getting my mail, Amazon Prime's not dropping off, whatever it is, make sure to get all that stuff done ahead of time, because it just makes things easier. And if you have a good real estate agent, they're gonna help you along with all of this throughout the process and make sure that this stuff happens already. All right, so then we are at the best day ever, closing day. So your lender and your realtor will have told you an amount in which to bring to closing. That amount must be in the form of a cashier's check unless you wire it. Can't put it on a debit card. You can't flex your Amex Black and throw it down there. You certainly can't come with a fat sack of cash. So get that number, go to the bank the day before, make sure that the cashier's check that you're getting, if you're doing a check, is written out to the title company with that amount. Double check with your agent, with your lender, with the title company to make sure that you have that number right. Because I had a closing not too long ago that the buyer thought the number was different, and she showed up and she was short $15,000. So you want to make sure that this stuff is done ahead of time, so there's no reason to have a hiccup in closing. So closing is a relatively straightforward process. The buyers are going to go into one room, the sellers are going to go into another. Usually the buyers sign first and then the sellers sign. It might take about a half an hour depending on the level of complexity with the file. At that point, you will physically take ownership of the house. There's stipulations in the MLS listing as well as in the contract that state that ownership will transfer physically at close. So once you have signed with that wet signature, that deed or that note or whatever the case is, then boom, you are now the proud owner of this house. You're going to get keys from the seller, you're going to get a garage door opener if they have one, you're going to get undoubtedly some gifts. Hopefully you've got a good realtor who likes to reward your whole process and show you a little bit more kind of how they appreciate you. If you don't, then let me know, because I love my clients and I would love to help you. So yeah, that's closing in a nutshell. It only takes about an hour. Make sure to take the day off or the morning off work. Sometimes you can e-sign. If you're doing a cash deal, you can e-sign and you can just send your agent to closing. You don't have to go there personally, so that's always good if you want. So that's about it. You can cut this down and there's a lot of different steps to each individual step, but this should give you a really good and simple basic idea of what you can expect when you go to buy a house. If you go to my website, willflanaganrealty.com, there is a guide that you can download. There's tons of resources out there that are available to anybody and everybody, but in my humble opinion, the best possible thing that you could do is to hire a trustworthy realtor. This is going to be the biggest financial decision of your life, if not one of the biggest, and to try to go it alone can be a little challenging. So I appreciate you coming by. Drop a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you guys like about the video? What did you hate? Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Peace.